Hello guys, and welcome to another video, and this was one of the most challenging and longest, I believe it was the longest race in Gran Turismo World Series so far. So GT7, rainy conditions, or I would call it rainy, it was really changeable conditions in here, and I started on racing hard tires because the qualifying was done, of course, in completely dry conditions, and I decided to start my race with slicks, and racing hard tires were the only option that was available for this one. The Skyline that I was using was really slow in the first, let's say, in the first half of the acceleration part, but then later you can see how much speed is it getting on the straight. It was an absolute rocket in the straight line. So I think I had an OP car. If this was only a dry race, I think this car would be like the best car to pick and just the best car to go with, but the conditions were constantly changing. I was at P7, I mean I dropped quickly to P8 and I got myself into P7 once again, and I kind of wanted to settle down to the pace that was okay for the race, not too good, not too bad, but just settling down to the rhythm. And as you can see, the rain was slowly coming to us, and I thought this would be kind of a good shot to eventually go for the move and try to do something, but just as I said before, this car is very bad on the acceleration, and I got a little push here, so I think even without the push I would pretty much lose this position because the 911 was so much better in the acceleration, but then on the straight it was really missing a lot of speed. But now Kelster was kind of looking for a gap, and I left this gap open and he took this place from me and I dropped into P9. But now the rain is coming and I'm on racing hard tires, which you probably all know are slick tires, and if you kind of find yourself in a situation that you're on slick tires in the rain, this is not good. This is absolutely not good. And also, just to make the things more interesting, I got myself a half a second penalty because it's just the way it is. I guess it should be always like that. You always need to get at least, I would say at least a second worth of penalties, and you know, drop at least a couple of places to make the race interesting. But I got the penalty, I served my penalty, and I eventually thought I was gonna lose a little bit more time, but the car, just as I said before, was really good in the straight line, and I had that proper pace. I could actually defend, so it wasn't like I got that penalty, I'm gonna lose more places. I even got back to Kelster and just decided to try to maybe go for a move, but once again, not the best car for the acceleration, pretty good in the straight line, and I just couldn't. I mean, he had just better acceleration, there was no way to get him. But of course we can just wait for the straight and do that easy overtake as usual. So just as I said, I think it said it a couple of times so far, the car is really good, maybe one of the best cars in this race, or it was one of the best cars in the race, and I got myself back into P7. And I'm just gonna move 6 laps later. So nothing much was going on, and I was kind of trying to really settle down into the rhythm and really find the pace that this car had. I mean, I had pretty good pace so far, but I just want to get myself into that clean air and don't do many mistakes, and just, you know, just trying to find that good pace, really settle down and find something that I'm good at. And eventually I got very close to the guys in P5 and P6, and once again, a very easy overtake in the straight line. Nothing much that they could have done. It was a little tap, I guess, to no, but I think it was nothing really that hard. So I just carried on. It was P5 at this point. It was a kind of a very nice two overtakes. And just a couple of laps later, I caught on to Will, and I think Will was starting to struggle with the tires, because you probably know it's not the best car. I mean, it's okay car, but it's not the best car in the longer races. And Fento decided to go into the pits, and it also, I think the radar was showing that, yeah, the rain is coming. The rain is gonna be here in maybe a minute, maybe two, but we know what rainy conditions are like on this track, and especially if you're running on racing hard tires and it's raining. So it's not a good idea. It's definitely not a good idea to stay on those hard tires, and I just carried on. I didn't want to go into the pits that early because it really takes time that the track needs to get fully wet in those fully wet conditions or intermediate conditions. I mean, most of the racing in GT7 is about intermediate tires, not really fully wet, because like when it's wet conditions, the car is, you know, the car, and it's just absolutely undrivable. So I don't know why they made it like that, but like heavy rain here means that it's like completely wet. Like the heavy rain was coming. But I really don't want to risk it, so this was a good time. I kind of saw that, I just saw that, okay, maybe it's a good time to get into the pits, just follow the leaders. We don't want to risk it too much, because I'm in P3, and it's a pretty good shot. I mean, starting from P7, dropping back to P9, and get myself into P3 once again. And just by this point I realized I had a little bit less fuel than all of the other guys. And just by the time I got out of the pits, the rain really kicked in. It was not even 30-40 seconds ago that was kind of dry conditions, but now these are very, very hard conditions to race at. And Fuaros decided to, I think he decided to go in a little bit earlier, but I mean, yeah, I think he made a good choice. He was in P1. Tunable Coyote also made that good call, P2, and Fento, who was a lap earlier into the pits, I think he made a little, I would say, a little bad decision about staying out for one lap less, but here it was really bad. You can see how much the car was, it was difficult. I mean, MR cars in the rain are always better. So the Skyline was really, really good in kind of dry conditions, but now I even had to put the TCS at 1 because it felt like it was undrivable. Of course, you can control the car, but in these conditions, I mean, it was just impossible. At one point, you know, when the rain was really hitting hard, I mean, it's aquaplaning. You cannot really do much, and exactly what happened here. You can see how hard it was for me to keep the car on the track, and I tried to readjust the car once again, and doing then one little correction too much, and basically I was just a passenger, just like the other guys in front of me. And I mean, I didn't know what to think. The race was looking quite promising, and all of a sudden it's fully raining. I mean, I'm into that position that I have absolutely no idea what to do, where to brake, how to accelerate. I mean, I can just try to do something. And now Fuvares made that little mistake. He was on the intermediates, but he decided to go for full wets. And I think that decision really cost him this race, because I think he was the fastest car or the fastest guy in this lobby, and he should have easily won. When I say easily, nothing is easy in these conditions, but he could have won this race. It could have been his race, but he decided to go for full wets, but the track was actually drying out. And I think these are the perfect conditions where you can pull up a little bit of a strategy. I mean, nothing too much, nothing too special, but it's just about staying on the track, maybe doing a kind of a risky strategy, maybe it's gonna pay out. But all of a sudden, two guys just in front of me collided, and it was a quick promotion to P5. I mean, I wasn't really expecting something like that, but I mean, I'm gonna say it once again, in these conditions anything is possible. You're just trying to stay on the track, and as I said before, these were full wet conditions. I mean, intermediate tires were okay, but they are just not working. Every turn is about sliding in and hoping that the car is gonna stay there. I mean, it was a very debatable choice of tires. I mean, later on it proved on that the intermediate tires were better in the long run, but just one that little mistake, you can lose up to 5-10 seconds and the race is pretty much over. I mean, I was almost out of this race, and I just don't know how I saved that car in that corner, but I mean, yeah, all of a sudden I made too many mistakes. FR car is definitely not the car you want to be, and the Skyline is, once again, definitely not the car for the rain, and this 911. And the Frenchman, I mean, oh yeah, he had so much more pace. He was really good in these conditions. I'm not gonna blame it on the car, but I mean, he was really, really good in these conditions. But I mean, I had the straight line speed once again, and he couldn't really defend in the straight line. I mean, the straight line is a straight line in the wet, in dry conditions. It doesn't really matter where, but you're just getting so much more pace on the straight line that it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to defend such a place. And I was really trying to get it off the curbs, because the curbs are quite slippery in the wet, and you always want to follow that dry line that is kind of forming. I mean, in this game it's kind of quickly forming, but as you can see, he was really on to me. I mean, I couldn't do much. I tried, but the car was sliding so much I just couldn't hold it in these conditions, and he eventually got the place. I mean, he got the P5, and I just thought to myself, okay, I'm just gonna go through this section. I mean, I don't want to make any more mistakes. I can just let him go. He's gonna be much faster than me, and yeah, just the way it goes. And it was like that until there was a contact in between him and P4, and once again I got my place back. I got that P5, and once again the race is changing for me. The race was going from P9 up to P7, dropped to P9 once again, doing a stop, and once again into P5. So you could never really know what to expect here, can you? I mean, there is absolutely no way you can expect something like that. And I mean, a couple of laps later, once again, I'm going onto the straight, like easy overtake, straight line speed advantage, and I'm into P4. So the race with, I wouldn't call it like the best strategy, like in the best conditions or the best driving. It was just looking very good for me. I mean, this race was something else. I mean, I just wish there's gonna be more races like this. I think this is a standard now, and it should be like, yeah, it really should be. But then Tunable Coyote was just in front of me, and he was on full wet tires. I checked it out later, and he decided to go into the pits. I mean, lap 17, the track is drying out. You could potentially get up to hard tires or slicks and just trying to make it work, but I thought to myself, it was only 7 more laps, and I'm just not gonna make that gap. I'm not gonna be able to pull up that gap and close it down and eventually get the benefit of racing hard tires instead of the intermediates. There is no way. And if you make a mistake, it's pretty much game over. But once again, I was in a constant threat from the Frenchman. He was really quick in these changing conditions, and I really tried defending, but he always had that kind of a little bit of that extra acceleration that he always pulled off, and I think he was always kind of going for the dry line, really taking the most out of the acceleration zone, and of course the car, because the 911 it's a pretty good car in the rain in these changing conditions. But once again, the straight line speed advantage really saved me, and I think if I didn't had that much of an advantage in the straight line, I couldn't be able to defend the place like that. And once again, lap by lap, he's always attacking, I'm always defending, we're always side by side, and I think this was the closest one that we got. It was really side by side going into Eau Rouge, but he decided to pull out, and I mean, I didn't want to risk it, but at the same time I really didn't want to lose that place. And I mean, I took the right line, I took the right call, and I mean, I think in the end this move really made it and really stabilized my P3 and kind of cemented it into that podium position, because now the guys at the back started fighting and the gap slowly increased up to 2.5 seconds. So it was about 2.5 seconds, and depends on the section, but it really helped me. Like, the straight line speed really helped me to attack and defend, and just I think this car really had it all for the race. Maybe not everything in those rainy conditions, but after 24 laps, almost a full hour of racing in GT7, which I think it was the longest race, and hitting 600 viewers on the live stream and over 400 likes, which I do have to say thank you all for watching my videos, for supporting me, and that's about it. I made it into P3, and just when looking at the race like that, it was an absolutely insane race, and I would really like to do it again. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can always smash that like button. So once again, thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.
I think
Bye.
This has to be some kind of a record.